Broadcasting from the basement bunker beneath the Kello AM studios. Welcome to the fourth hour with Greg Belfrage. It's always so great to have you along. We'll start with the president's True Social account because it's where a lot of we were talking this morning about, and here comes the president. We were talking about daylight saving time. The House and Senate should push hard for more daylight at the end of a day. Very popular. And most importantly, no more changing of the clocks, a big inconvenience. And for our government, a very costly event. You know, this is the first time I think that I have heard that being brought up. The cost to the government of changing all of those clocks. It's a great point. I know it's an issue for business. It's an issue personally, as we were talking about this morning. All right, I don't want to belabor that too much, but I welcome your comments as always. Feel free to comment. I love your comments. I take a look at them every day, so I love seeing what you're saying, and what you're thinking. So don't ever be afraid to share your comments with me. President also saying this morning, now again, these are comments within the past hour or so. President saying Russia has to get moving. Too many people are dying, thousands a week, in a terrible and senseless war, a war that should have never happened and wouldn't have happened if I were president. So he's pushing Russia again to get going. I'm not convinced that we'll see where that goes. Russia has had plenty of time. The president has been out there for weeks now, encouraging Russia, wanting to talk to Russia, wanting to end the war between them and Ukraine, and Russia just doesn't seem to be motivated to do that. President also here responding about the tariffs. We're doing very well on our tariff policy. Very exciting for America and the world. It is moving along quickly, says President Trump. There's a piece this morning at foxnews.com. Remember Jason Chaffetz, former member of Congress? And he's saying Democrats have made a fatal error in opposing DOGE. We were talking on the air this morning about the Department of Government Efficiency. Do you support it? Should it continue? Do you want to see the Department of Government Efficiency continue? And Chaffetz says, forced to defend the indefensible, congressional Democrats are having trouble coming up with rational arguments, not only against DOGE on everything. I think Democrats are having trouble coming up with rational arguments, period. But why don't you want to eliminate the waste, the fraud, the abuse that we're finding in the federal government? And he says, case in point, the April revelation from the CEO of Valor, the DOGE found some 2.1 million Social Security numbers given out to non-citizens in 2024. Now, keep that in mind. That is just last year. That last year alone, $2.1 million in 2.1 million Social Security numbers were given out to non-citizens, and many of which being used to access social programs. And Chaffetz says Democrats have largely refused to engage with the argument, which indeed they have, and I think in part because how do you argue that? I mean, you're caught red-handed. That is like, the kid with chocolate smeared all over their face telling you, I didn't get in the chocolate cake. I didn't do it. It smeared all over their face. How do you deny it? You can't. So, and I think this is why it's so ridiculous. So Chris Coons, has gotten more and more ridiculous, got an eye roll from Martha McCallum when he attempted to minimize the fraud. And he So she brought up the issue, and Coons pivoted to attacks on Elon Musk. And this just goes on. Senator Chuck Schumer also having trouble finding a persuasive line of attack. He's resorted to claiming Trump and Musk are engaged in deep corruption and self-dealing, even as they expose the deep corruption and self-dealing of what's going on in the government. He's calling it the Democrats' nonprofit grift machine. It's a really good piece by Jason Chaffetz. And again, you'll find it at foxnews.com this morning. Democrats having made, in his opinion, a fatal error in opposing Doge. Okay, also, just taking a quick look at the issue, Edgy here saying, I watched a video in defense of daylight savings. And it was very convincing in how it laid out what our days would look like if we eliminated it. I don't think it's such an easy issue anymore. I really am of the belief it shouldn't be an issue at all. Let's get the government out of this stuff. Let's get the government out. I'm very much a believer that is when things kind of went sideways. Okay, so while we're laughing at Democrats, I'll share this one with you. Hakeem Jeffries claiming the Democrats want to secure the border. I mean, seriously, how do you not laugh at that on its face? He's saying now they want to secure the border. Really? Is that what we saw during the Biden administration then, Mr. Jeffries? Is that what we saw? Biden administration and you and Democrats in Congress all working hard to secure the border? Is that what we saw? I get so tired of these people trying to tell us that we didn't see what we saw. No, you didn't see that. No, we weren't doing that. And not at all. No, we believe in a secure border. We believe that we need to secure the border. Let's see what he's saying here. This is...
Republicans are proposing new spending for border security funding in this forthcoming budget bill. Is that something that...
All right, here it comes.
...will support, that sort of security investment?
We have to look at the particulars. We believe that we need to secure the border, make sure that it is safe and strong.
With a straight face, no less.
Consistent with America as a country of a nation of laws.
Here it comes.
Is fully and completely implemented at the border.
Now here it comes.
We believe we have a broken immigration system. And we need to fix
there it is. A broken immigration system. How many times have you and I been told we've got a broken immigration system? No, it's not broken. You just don't like the laws. You just don't like the laws that Congress has passed. Democrats have now decided, Democrats who have been in the past were all in favor of these laws. Now they've decided, no, we don't like these laws. And it's a broken immigration system. Immigration system's not broken. Let's be very, very clear. They just don't like the laws that were passed. And that's what this is all about. They ignore the laws. They trample all over the laws. And then they come out and they say, no, we believe in a secure border. Yeah, we... how do you not laugh at that stuff? I mean, that is just absolutely incredible. Hakeem Jeffries. I don't... that really doesn't do a lot to restore his credibility, does it? When he's out there repeating that. And this is the problem with Democrats. The Democrat Party in Washington. I mean, it's the same. They can't let go of their lies. They cannot shift. They cannot move. They have just further and further to the left, and their denials of the obvious, are just... How do you... I don't know if the Democrat Party could actually move back to the center. I don't... As it is right now, they can't. It's just been absolutely incredible to watch. So the more that we see the the more outrageous they are. Also, I want to share this because this is really crazy. This is Matt Vespa at Town Hall. So about that pro-life reporter who got sucker punched. He's saying words fail the progressive left. And this is why they're endorsing domestic terrorism and so on. And so this is Savannah Craven is a reporter for Live Action. And she was interviewing Brianna Rivers. And I want you to see at one point then here's what happens. Hold on.
Children that have been abused.
That's not the point. What I'm saying.
That's really.
Boom! Yikes.
What's wrong with you?
You have it off.
Oh my God.
Just got slugged. And then they run after her here in a little bit. Here they go. They're running down the street after her. And of course, she's flipping them off. That's what, if you can see that. She's giving them the bird. Yeah.
She attacked my wife.
Yeah, pretty incredible. Pretty incredible. So now this is the woman who just got hit, Savannah Craven. And she is in the vehicle afterward and reacting to what happened. And you can see she's cut up. She got smacked right in the face. Hold on here.
Yeah, the dress that she wore, I missed it. Look to the right.
No, she's not them.
She's big. She's tall.
So they're out looking for her now. All scraped up. I'll give this a second or two. They ask her some questions here. Again, they're looking for the woman who assaulted her.
This is going to be a video for sure. My goodness. She said she lived in the Bronx, so I don't think that she would have gone in a building somewhere.
How do you know her?
I don't know her. She was a stranger on the street, and I asked her if she wanted to do an interview for my YouTube channel.
Stranger on the street and takes a poke at her. And so this goes, now we don't see all of she offered an apology. I'm going to put that in quotes because these are non-apologies. And she said to Savannah, I sincerely apologize, but what have I said about using the word but? when you have people who are saying but, forget about everything they said prior to the but. I sincerely apologize, but that doesn't sound like a sincere apology to me. To me, a sincere apology sounds like, that was wrong of me. I sincerely apologize. I regret my actions. I hope you're okay. That to me would be a sincere apology. But she said, but cannot sit around and allow you to continue pushing this one-sided narrative. I understand hands being put on someone is never the answer, but there's that big ugly but again. Throwing rocks and hiding hands is worse. She knows the truth. She needs to release the footage in its entirety. Oh, so even if this woman who is doing the interview, she agrees that I read the entire story at the New York Post, and she says the interview then did get a little bit more heated and that she was pushing her a little bit. So if you're doing an interview on the street with somebody and you feel like it's getting out of hand and they're going too far and it's getting a little bit outrageous, what would you do? What would you do? Seriously. I'd appreciate seeing your thoughts in the comments. I'd walk away. I'd just say, well, thank you, and leave. I would. I would just say thank you, leave. I would not punch the person in the face. And then as I walk off, be, flipping the bird behind my, those things say something about your character because we've all been provoked, right? We've all been provoked. And you respond by, punching somebody just suddenly punching them in the face. That says something about the person who's willing to do that. So the idea about the whole video, and maybe the whole video is going to show a lot more. And maybe this woman did. Are you ever justified in punching somebody in the face like that? See, my answer would be no. I mean, the only time you're really justified in behaving in that way is if you're being assaulted. You're being assaulted yourself. In other words, you're defending yourself. And I mean from a physical attack, right? You're trying to defend yourself. You might punch somebody like that. You don't just punch people like that out of the blue. That says something about her character and the fact that the non-apology, I sincerely apologize, but, and then goes on to say that several times. So, but, it's nonsense. We all know it's nonsense. You're a raging, a raging person who just can't handle that. Again, if you're bothered by it, just turn and walk off. Just turn and say, and make whatever comment you want to make. Say whatever you want to say. But that just cracks me up. I mean, people think they're justified doing things like that. I don't think that's ever justified. Let's lighten it up here a little bit. President Trump talking about China is saying they're going to block American films over the tariffs. So they're just going to reduce the number of U.S. films that are imported into China. And the president was asked about this. He said, I think I've heard of worse things. Let's take a listen to the question.
Mr. President, China retaliated today by reducing the number of American films that can be shown there. What's your reaction to them now targeting cultural exports from the United States?
I think I've heard of worse things. Yes,
yeah, and then he just moves on. I think I've heard of worse things. I would kind of agree with that. All right, there is one other story that I want to share with you this morning. And this is totally off of anything we've already touched on. And I just have to say, I'm a big fan of Johnny Carson. Have been for a very long time. I watched the last episode of The Tonight Show, and I was in tears. I mean, and I don't get weepy about, I especially after Johnny Carson died, I wept because I just felt a connection with Johnny Carson. Invited him into the home every night, enjoyed the program, a lot of laughs, a lot of good humor, a lot of interesting conversation. I just loved The Tonight Show. So Johnny Carson's nephew is saying what Johnny would think of The Tonight Show now, and which is pretty interesting. He thinks that Johnny Carson would like The Tonight Show under Jimmy Fallon. And I'm not going to get into this. Actually, there's a lot of great moments here. The New York Post included that Elpo dog food commercial. Johnny getting out, Ed's there doing the commercial, and Johnny comes out eating out of the Elpo dog dish. But this is really, I found this to be really interesting. I'm gonna come down near the end of the, and this is Johnny Carson's nephew who was talking, and he's saying, "Oh, forgive me. It's a huge story. I really recommend it." Johnny, regarding a helicopter, where is this? Oh, here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. I went too far. Toward the end of the show, Johnny was driving in from Malibu. It took him 2 hours to get there from Malibu, and it was just a nightmare. Heavy rainstorms. And I said to him, again, this Johnny Carson's nephew, who became one of the producers on the show, he said, and I said to him, I bet you can get a helicopter to come to Malibu, like, pick you up at the sheriff's station, land at the NBC lot here. We could do that on a daily basis. And he said, could you check on that for me? And since I'm a pilot, I say, yeah, I'll do that. So he found a helicopter rental company, said, I flew out to Malibu. I timed it. We flew back to NBC. It was great. A quick 15 minutes. A couple days later, he says to me, did you ever find out about that helicopter? I said, yeah, I did. It's amazing. They pick you up at 2:15. You're in the studio at 2:30. You finish the show at 7 o'clock. You're home at 7:20. He goes, that's great. What's the cost? I said, $300, forgive me, $300 each way. He went, what? I said, it's $300 each way. He says, Jeff, who spends $600 a day to go to work? What kind of person does that? And then he goes on. So Johnny Carson at that point making between 20 and $30 million a year. Okay. And he says he wouldn't budge. And he said, so he wouldn't do that because that was just outrageous to him. That he would be spending that kind of money. And he goes on to talk about his Uncle Johnny. Everybody relates to him. People thought he was their best friend. They had no problem coming up to him and telling him how much they liked him. And he just loved that. He thought that was terrific. Which I understand, because I feel the same way when some of you come up and we've never met, you introduce yourself. I love it. I absolutely love it. Talking about Ed McMahon, so on, the orchestra. Yeah, he wanted a big band. Johnny said, I want a big band. I want a big band. He was in a position of power. He was able to keep that big band, and he had it for more than 20 years. And if you talk to those guys, they'll tell you that was the greatest gig in the world. They come in at 2:00, they do a rehearsal, they back people up, they're done at 6, and they can do another gig. They were all just incredible musicians. And he talked about his uncle. It was incredible for me to go from watching my uncle start the show and then being with him when the show ended. And they never had standing ovations. It was kind of like a forced laydown. It was kind of like nobody stands up. But the audience stood for the last month when he came out. And every day it was longer and longer and longer. I cried at the end of that show. And he said the overwhelming support for him and honor to him was just incredible. He said after having a standing ovation of like 5 minutes, he said, I can't do this. How am I going to do this? It's just too tough. He said it was unbelievable. It was really, really wonderful. Then for him to do the last show, he said, I'm just going to sit on a stool, tell people goodbye, and then I'm going to leave. And that's exactly what he did. And that was just such an incredible moment and an incredible show. And again, you can find that story. That was at the New York Post that I was just sharing. So New York Post has got that story. We'll leave it there for today, and I want to wish you a great weekend. That's a wrap from the bunker. You made it to the end of the video. You are part of my gallery of champions. If you would hit the like button before you leave, I'd be even further indebted to you. So please have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you Monday. I'm underground and gone.